What about South Sydney? That grunt of
There's a bit going on,
concern,
isn't there?
disapproval.
A bit going on there.
Look, that wasn't a great game against the Broncos. Broncos 28-18 winners. Again, too good for them. But I don't think either's played great. And 0-2 going into a Roosters game.
Jared's 300th. So they will be fired up,
especially after
Roosters.
going down to Manly.
Yeah.
And that was a meek second half for the Roosters, which Manly on fire. But what do you make of South at the moment?
Well, it's clear they're battling, right? They've got a lot of players out. Jai Arrow, Jack Whiten. Whiten's back this week. That's huge for them. But they just look. They've got a lot of players who just aren't playing well.
Yeah.
Everyone's pointing the finger at Lachlan Ilias. Cody Walker's been bang average the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're struggling in the middle of the park. They're getting dominated. I mean, Brisbane, but Paddy Carrigan and Payne Haas just rolled through the middle of the field on Thursday night. They've got no speed out wide. They're getting just hammered out wide because obviously no Campbell Graham, no Tyrone Munro. There's just flaws everywhere at the moment, that side.
Yeah. 62% completion rate in that game for Souths. It's...
I do feel, honestly, a bit for Lachlan Ilias because people forget sort of where he is in his development as an halfback, but also he's in a spine that has Cody Walker, Damien Cook and Latrell. Like, if you're a young kid coming into grade and you're walking into that spine, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm in safe hands here. There's enough class and talent in that spine to be taking pressure off him as he sort of finds his feet in the NRL. But that sort of hasn't happened, and somehow it's all fallen back on the most inexperienced side player in the spine, like you said, rather than sort of focusing or turning the microscope on Cookie or Cody Walker. So I do feel sorry for him. Like I understand he wears the number 7, I get that, but you would have thought the number 7 in that spine, that should be the best education for him in his development. But all of a sudden, 2 rounds in and the pressure, the blowtorch is back on him, and whether he should be in that side.
Well, I mean, Jason's been an outspoken supporter of him for a long time, right? And said he'd be better than Adam Reynolds, didn't he, last year?
Yeah.
But JD's under immense pressure as well. I don't know if you saw the Josh Mansour interview at the weekend, where Josh basically hammered him on the bye round with Jimmy Graham, was scathing in his criticism of JD. Now, obviously it didn't end well for Josh there, so he's going to have a
different view of
JD. But I mean, we all at the start of the season, everyone said, if things don't start well at South, the coach is going to be under pressure. They've gone 0-2. The way it's looking, they'll probably go 0-3. And the walls are closing in. And he's in a battle for survival right now.
After 2 rounds.
So basically everything goes out the window, right? He's committed himself to Lachlan Ilias. And it sounds like Lachlan's under pressure to hold his place in the team. Well, how does he justify that? How does the coach justify that when he's been so publicly outspoken in support of the guy? And what's it going to do to him if the coach turns around and axes him now? What message is that going to send to Lachlan?
And that's, you look at South's left edge, they desperately need Jack Whiten there, don't they? So, if he comes back in, you think centre would be their glaring
Well, I think he's trained at centre all off-season. He's trained only at centre.
He has trained only at centre, but when I spoke to JD in the pre-season about all that stuff, he sort of was reluctant to say that that's where Jack Whiten's home would be. He said, yes, he has trained at centre and that's how I see him at this point, but if for whatever reason, that changes or what he needs changes, then you never know. So I don't know, I just think even just having Jack Whiten in that side, I think he gives them a bit of a boost, a bit of confidence. He's such a aggressive sort of power player. Like you said, sort of their forwards were struggling for go forward, so hopefully he's the kind of player who can help with momentum from the backfield with his carries, and he will get his hands on the ball if they get him quick early ball out at centre. So I don't know, I think it's a big ask to sort of be hanging their hopes on Jack Wyden. Yes, incredible player, but him at centre, that's true. A lot of expectation for him going into this, especially this really big game, that he's going to be, the reason they turn things around in a number 3 jumper.
It feels like the coach has lost. I would not lost the dressing room.
Be careful.
I won't say that again. But almost like he's lost control.
Do you think?
Well, look at Latrell after that interview he did after the game. It feels like it doesn't feel like. It's hard to say. It's hard to. You know where I'm trying to go with it? It feels like there's big personalities there and big egos and great football players, and he's trying to keep everything under control, and it's so hard.
Sam Burgess and John Morris left last season with the narrative of a very similar theme.
Yeah. Well, it feels like that's what it feels like. No, I don't know. I haven't spoken to JD about it, or I'm not close enough to know what it's like in there. I'm not around them every day, but that's what it feels like from the outside. For me, it feels like the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And he's got to find a way to pull it all back together, because it feels like it's fraying at the edges, right? It feels like it's falling apart a little bit.
What were you going to say for Timo?
No, I was going to say, I don't know whether, definitely big personalities. I don't know whether there's big egos as such, but definitely big vocal personalities. Just with Latrell's rant post-match on the radio, or whatever you want to call it.
Brent Read's own Triple M.
Brent Read's own Triple M.
I hold you personally responsible.
It was the Dobbo's fault.
That was a Dobbo's fault. Yeah. Spencer was your fault. I think, Latrell's that kind of personality where it doesn't matter who was his coach. He probably does give that same sort of interview, whether it was Robbo coaching him, JD coaching him, Wayne coaching him.
You think?
Yeah, okay. Because Wayne's that kind of coach who wants players to be themselves, and all coaches want players to be themselves. I reckon maybe if Latrell had his time over, he probably will rethink it. But
would he?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, a question for you: do you think Latrell?
Can I give you a bit of breaking news?
Yeah.
I think Lachlan Ilias has been dropped this week. Dropped from the team. So that news will come out obviously officially tomorrow, but there's a bit of mail around that Ilias is gone.
Right.
So he's obviously, sounds like JD has made that decision.
So Whiten in, or Dean Hawkins up from reserve grade? How do they?
Let's go. Don't know. It looks like Hawkins at 7. So.
Wow.
Okay.
Big news. Wow.
It is big news.
What about that?
It is big news.
And
but again, one of those
baptism of fire too up against the Roosters. Oof.
Yeah. But one of those, as Reedy said, one of those decisions that's really, really going to put the spotlight back on JD again. So it'll be interesting to see whether he is tempted to chuck Jack Wyden in the halves. Reedy said Hawkins. That's probably a more like-for-like replacement, but a big call, and also a big call in the context of Ilias's career at that club too.
Yeah.
So remember a couple of years ago he famously hooked him, and that caused a whole whole kerfuffle. And since then, like you said, he's come in and backed him as the guy who's going to lead them, into the promised land. But 2 rounds in, he's been dropped.
Yeah, geez, that's big news. And just as I was saying on Latrell, do you think he's taking on too much? And I don't want this to sound flippant, because he's charged with carrying South on his shoulders at the moment, because as we've seen that Ilias hasn't been playing great. Cody Walker hasn't been playing great. Latrell's been trying hard.
He has.
He was the first one to come out and say the NRL better do something about the Ezra Mam, Spencer Lenius racism stuff. He then went toe to toe with Anthony Mundine on social media. He scores his 100th career try, which he's obviously happy about. Then he drops 5 F-bombs in 12 seconds, whatever it is. But is there too much going on around him? Or is this the responsibility of Latrell as he's the face of the game? And obviously he wants to champion Indigenous rights, which and we applaud him for it. I'm not saying not to do that in any stretch, but he's dealing with a lot outside of just playing football.
Yeah, I think I do tend to agree with you. I think for anybody else who isn't Latrell, it feels like a lot. It might be getting to a point where, you know, you could say from the outside looking in, is it becoming a burden for Latrell? Just on the footy side of things, he has been trying his guts out, but it just, you know, he can't do it all on himself. And I think the record is they win 70+% games with him, and then that drops without him. So he is really important to that footy team. In terms of taking on, you know, being a voice and an advocate off the field, I think he relishes that, and I think he finds purpose in that. So, and they're the kind of things that are actually going to make him a better footballer on the field. Has he got it perfect all the time? No. You know, he's still quite young too. How old is Latrell? 25, 26?
Yeah.
You know,
you're into vet.
You're around a long time.
I think by that age, the maturity level's got to be right up there. Not saying that.
No, 26.
There's been a lot going on in his life.
26, right up there.
He's an emotional guy, Latrell, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like the week leading in that game, he was just everywhere, and maybe that's just the emotion. He's an emotional guy, right? And that's one of the things we love about him. You know, wears his heart on his sleeve a bit, and he's so outspoken. But you know, that interview wasn't great. I didn't like it. I don't think it was. You know, I always think about my kids in moments like that. You know, it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever. Like 10:30. My kids aren't watching the footy anyway. Yeah. But you know,
but if you're driving
just
from the game or anything,
it's just unnecessary. It was unnecessary.
I think I've dropped a couple of F-bombs when I've been talking to you. You go, I got my kids in the car. I'm like, I'm sorry. So,
it's just unnecessary, right?
Yeah, I know.
Goodness.
And it was excessive. And I don't know. And the other thing was the celebration of the 100th try. Like, I was watching that. I was watching the end of that game, and when he scored, he pointed at the camera. I thought, "What are you doing? Like, why are you celebrating this?"
Yeah.
And then afterwards, he obviously announced it was his 100th try. But even so, I mean, that perpetuates this image that he's bigger than the team. That it's about me. It's about the me rather than the we. Right? That's the allegation that's always made. But the thing
is, as long as the Bunnies rely so much on him being there to win games, you know, he's almost not
about the only bloke playing good from at the moment,
exactly.
right? I mean, you know, so maybe Jack coming back will help, but you know, I really feel for Lachlan Ilias. Yeah. He's a really good young kid. Yeah. Who's been put in a difficult situation.
Yeah. Where to now for him, Reedy? Do you reckon that sort of it's sort of,
you know, I think the messages go back and own reserve grade, but you know. What does that do for him? Like, really? I mean, how are you going to go back and own reserve grade? Really? You know, I hope. I don't know where to. I don't know where to for him. Really. I mean, JD's obviously made a really difficult decision, and I don't think it's a good one. I think it's a bad decision because I think it's going to break the kid to an extent. But I think he's shown he's a tough guy, right? He'll find a way back, but I don't know.
You know, and this is a team last week where I don't think it was Lachlan Ilias' fault that Brisbane really tormented that edge defence of theirs. They went down Richie Kenner's side a lot, and they were having a field day.
They're so short out wide at the moment, aren't they?
You know, Campbell Graham, Jack White on either side. You put them in, and
it looks like a different footy team.
Yeah, you know. And you got Munro on the wing, which gives them some speed. Which they really lack speed at the moment. Correct. And you know, and now.
And also, both of those two guys, Campbell Graham and Whiten, are pretty good defenders.
Yeah.
So
which would help Lachlan Ilias, right? No, Joe Arrow, they're at the moment as well. I don't know. Tough for him.
You know, young Tallis Duncan, I think, had a bit of a tough night. And he's, you know, which is obviously hard to go in and own a starting spot like that. Yeah. You know, he'll be better for the run, but yeah, it's not great if you're a South fan.